Well, 2024 will be the first AI election year. Does that sound worrying to you? Let's explore what it means. Basically, this year, 2023, as you're probably aware, has sort of been the year of artificial intelligence. Tools like ChatGPT really entering the mainstream. After years in development and existence, AI finally captured the public's imagination this year. A lot of us are finally waking up to the fact that it's already reshaping much of our societies at breakneck speed. So this year has been the year that many of us finally started listening to its creators who have been sounding the alarm.
My worst fears are that we, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
Well, concerns that the technology's unchecked progress is heading towards outsmarting humans in scales beyond our comprehension and possibly even threatening our existence.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real.
To get started, register on the website, wait for a manager's call, and invest a minimum of £250.
My fellow Americans, in this age of information and misinformation, we know deepfake videos have never been easier to produce.
Well, by spring of this year, AI-generated deepfakes like these were already flooding the internet, making it harder and harder to distinguish between what is real and what isn't. It was the realization of something scientists have been warning us about for years, that manipulated images can have very real-world consequences. And particularly worrying because next year is a historic election year around the world. Some 50 countries with a collective population of more than 2 billion people could probably find themselves voting. The UK will be among them. Rishi Sunak confirming that fact to journalists last night. Joe Biden as well could face Donald Trump in US presidential elections in November. And India, now the world's most populous country, also likely heading to the polls. AI could have a big role to play in all of that. Now, it's true, elections have always been fraught with misinformation. Even before AI, campaigners and political candidates have fibbed to the masses. Increasingly online, foreign actors have tried to manipulate social media and sow disinformation to influence voters. But this new technology could supercharge those types of campaigns relying on fraud and propaganda. More campaigns, more sophisticated, hyper-targeted. It's a fight that is genuinely unprecedented. And with few rules and regulations currently in place around AI, and running out of time to put them in, to be quite frank, it's hard to know what the consequences could be. All we know is that AI has already irreversibly transformed the landscape of election campaigns. But to what extent? Well, unfortunately, we'll have to wait until next year to really find out. In a moment, we'll look into the detail of what the US is doing to prepare for the influence of AI in their upcoming elections. But first, here in the studio, I'm joined by Andrea Miotti, Director of Control AI, which is focused on addressing the risks of uncontrolled AI, and The Sun's political correspondent, Ryan Sabey, also with me to discuss the UK political impact. Andrea, thanks. I will come to you first and just talk a little bit about how worried you are, how worried we should be about AI and elections.
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight. Well, deepfakes since 2019 have increased by over 550%. That's a staggering increase, and they keep growing. I expect they're going to be a real concern with elections this year. The trend is not going to slow down. As you mentioned, there are basically no rules and no controls on them. Although election deepfakes are just, in some ways, a tip of the iceberg. 96% of deepfakes are non-consensual and pornographic. And nearly all other deepfakes are used for fraud. So we're facing abuse, sexual abuse, fraud, and misinformation concerns.
What's the way out of that to control it?
Well, I think a real way to control this is to address the entire supply chain. Just playing whack-a-mole with the users is not enough. These deepfakes are enabled by quite sophisticated technology that, however, is now becoming available to everyone at any time just with a laptop. And a few firms are the ones developing models that enable this, making these firms responsible, making website cloud providers responsible, would responsibilize the supply chain and make sure that this thing doesn't hurt us and our identities remain safe.
When we think about the way that malign powers have previously used social media to influence elections. What we know that Russia did, for example, manipulating social media and using troll farms and that type of thing to sway the way people voted and thought about things. AI opens up tools to the masses. It doesn't just have to be somebody in power. Anybody can create a deepfake, right?
Yeah, at the moment it's becoming easier and easier, especially because the cost of computation is getting cheaper. You can run some of these models on your laptop, but still, we still have a window to address the root cause, which is these very, very powerful models and these tools that are now being made freely available without any restrictions, without any responsibility. If we had some restrictions, some laws, some responsibility, we could cut down 90, 95% of all deepfakes. And it's not perfect, but it's a step forward and a step towards a safer future.
Do you think some governments aren't interested in getting regulation for malign reasons?
I'm not sure, but I think often the explanation is more mundane. Governments are falling behind the pace at which this technology is developing. We are seeing exponential growth in AI in all areas. This is just one of them. As Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, warned us just before, it's getting smarter in any area, at manipulation, at politics, at maths, at science. Billions are being poured into making this happen, and governments are just falling behind. And it would be good for governments to catch up, intervene, and take a break and find a way to deal with this exponentially rising technology.
Perhaps if they find themselves losing at the elections, that might spur them on to take some action if they find it was a result of AI. Let's talk more about governments. Bring in Ryan Sabey, also in the studio with us. Ryan, look, first of all, just to the news at hand, Rishi Sunak has confirmed that the election will be 2024, right?
Yeah, last night he was a drinks party for journalists, and he pretty much gave it was hardly Parliament's worst kept secret, but yeah, he confirmed that the election will be next year. He only had a very short window actually to go to in the following year, which is only January 2025. But it looks all but certain it will be 2024. There are events that could change that, but let's go with 2024 for the time being.
OK, I'm going to put my money on 2024 then. Look, in terms of AI, Rishi Sunak's made it one of his sort of big flagship policies. He held this huge AI summit. He must be aware of the risks of AI to elections.
Yeah, no, totally. He not only just in elections, but in the broader sense of whether terrorists can create conditions that, it's harder and harder for governments to track down. But he will be aware whenever he holds that election next year, there'll be the deep fakes, the messaging. And not only that, but when will those messages be deployed? Will they be deployed on the eve of election when people are actually thinking how they're going to cast their vote? So it's going to be really, really difficult, not only for Rishi Sunak, but for Keir Starmer to actually get over that. And the legislation that they've tried to bring in, and whether the Online Safety Act, you just wonder, is it out of date as it's published? Things are moving so quickly.
They are. And, as Andrea was saying, we've got no time, really. Let's hope they do take a pause and really start to bring in some regulation. Let's also speak down the line to a friend in the US who's going to talk to us a little bit more about the elections that they're planning there. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, joins us. Look, is this something you guys in the States are thinking about? Is it being talked about a lot?
Well, it is being talked about, Rosanna. The problem is, as your guest just laid out, no one really knows how to handle AI at this point as far as all those deepfakes that you're talking about. And what we have here are basically two unregulated entities. The first being artificial intelligence itself and the content that it creates. And then you have social media like Twitter/X or Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or all these places where if something that isn't real is created, it can be shared in a hurry. And then it's like taking a blowtorch to dry grass as far as a wildfire of misinformation regarding a candidate or their position on something. And by the time anybody can actually get around to verifying the truth, the lie has already won out because usually the exoneration gets 1/4, one fraction of the coverage than the lie itself. So, for example, in Chicago, there was a mayoral election earlier this year, and a video was actually created of one of the candidates with his voice, you would think it is absolutely him. You played that clip of Morgan Freeman before. It was like that. You heard this and you saw this and you thought that this man was talking, and he said that he approved of police brutality in Chicago. And this thing went viral and people believed it, because why wouldn't they? They see the voice, they see the face, and they assume that this person said it when in fact he did not. We saw it with Donald Trump, a photo of him being arrested, police chasing him down. He's on the ground, they're putting cuffs on him, and millions of people view this assuming that it was real. So it's being talked about a lot, yes, but I don't think there are any controls around this. And again, on social media, people will scroll, look at something and believe what they see and then move on believing that that was actually real when it wasn't. So it's going to be an absolute mess here in the US in 2024, that I can tell you.
A line travels so much faster around the world. Never a true word spoken, Joe. In terms of regulation, you know, we're talking here, we had this AI summit. You know, even Elon Musk deigned to visit the UK to talk about this. But from the research that we've done, only about 3 US states seem to have enacted laws to protect against AI. Do you expect more to follow?
Yeah, 3 out of 50, right? So 47, they're behind the curve right now. And yes, they better regulate this at this point, because look, there isn't a lot of motivation to regulate it too much, because it is an absolute cash cow right now, something like a $450 billion industry already, when a couple of years ago we weren't even talking about this at all. And companies like NVIDIA and Microsoft aren't going to slow down, particularly when they're trying to compete with the Chinese. So yeah, regulations may be coming, but the technology is moving so fast that by the time you regulate something, the technology's already moved ahead a year or two. And I just don't think that many folks understand that this is something, and Musk warned about this. You may have a situation here, if you remember the Terminator movies, where the computers actually take over certain things they shouldn't, like nuclear silos. And this isn't me talking about a conspiracy theory. This has been talked about by top experts in this field, saying if we don't control this technology now, it may turn on humans. Yes.
It's one of those things that people don't realize what a problem it is until it's far too late. Let's hope that doesn't happen when the election seasons kick off. Look, Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, thank you.